Hi everyone, and welcome to Enlightened Conversations. I have a beautiful, wonderful special guest with me today, JP Sears, who I consider a real soul brother with a mission to evolve the planet to higher vibrational frequencies in such creative ways. And I really honour his purpose and why he's here, why he's doing what he's doing. And I really want to say that when we find our groove in this life, when what we're here for matches the creative way in which we can express that, which is fantastic. We all have an opportunity to reach a lot of people with ease because we feel like we're in the flow. Now, I feel like JP Sears is one of those people. He's a true inspiration to me, and it's my honour and privilege to welcome him on the show. For those of you who don't know JP, he's an emotional healing coach, a YouTuber, an author, an international teacher, speaker at events, a world traveller and curious student of life. I love that. We all are, aren't we? He works with empowering people to live more meaningful lives. And JP is the author of How to Be Ultra Spiritual, which is being released on the 7th of March through Sounds True Publishing. So it's the 10th of March, which is being aired. So it's well and truly out there, everybody. So grab yourself a copy. You'll have a great giggle and you might get enlightened along the way. And for those of you who haven't seen his YouTube sensational videos, he's actually put together a wonderful, entertaining, informative videos, a comedy series called Ultra Spiritual, How to Be Ultra Spiritual, and he's had over 100 million views. So, gosh, what does this man doesn't do? What does he not do? I don't know. It's just amazing. Welcome, JP.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm happy to be here and I appreciate the wonderful introduction. I heard you call me beautiful and special. I've been called worse things in my life, and those are actually wonderful words to receive. So thank you for having me on, sister.
You're welcome. Look, you know what? Why didn't you straighten your hair? I straightened my hair for you. I was hoping for the headband and the straight hair. What's going on?
Yeah, well, apparently you weren't hoping hard enough. Your ability to use the law of attraction is clearly just not very effective, Michelle.
I don't straighten my hair, by the way. This is just... This is mostly air dried. The reason why I think is if I blow dry it too much, I find it gets too dry. So I just tend to kind of give it a bit of a blow dry and then let the air and the atmosphere do the rest.
Yeah, I like that. Where the earth becomes like your hairstylist, the atmosphere and the earth. I like that. Yeah, I was actually in the infrared sauna, and then I had to do a shower real quick before you and I jumped on the air. So yeah, I have not had a chance to beautify myself.
I think it's awesome that you've made time for me after hours. I don't really, record after hours with people. I mean, I feel really special that you'll put time aside for me.
Well, you are special. There's two reasons why we're doing this after hours. First and foremost is because you are so special. Second reason is I'm a workaholic. I work all the time. So, but really, I can't stress enough. It's really mostly because you're so special, Michelle.
Oh, thank you. I'm sure I'd do an after hours show too if you twisted my arm. I wanted to talk something. Usually I don't have anything to say before my shows because usually a lot of it just comes through. But today I went for my jog this morning and it was so funny. I was actually like getting jokes to tell you. This has never happened to me. I'm jogging along and I'm getting jokes dropping in, going, this is funny. I was laughing at them. Now, I know a lot of my jokes are very Phil Gumpy, so I own the dad joke, but I don't know, I got to tell them. So I don't even know if I can remember them, but I'll try.
Well, I'd love to hear as much as you can remember. I've got both my ears open.
All right. So for those of you who don't know what a spiritual blonde is, sorry, we can't explain it to you until after the jokes. So you might have to rewind and then you'll get the jokes better. Okay, so what do you call a spiritual blonde?
That is a good question, Michelle.
Yes! Oh my God, you got it. So you're the joke maker. You know the punchline before you even get the joke.
Well, who do you think telepathically communicated the joke to you in the first place?
Yeah, it's channeling you.
I feel like I've evolved to become your spirit animal.
Oh my God. That's well, wait till you hear this next joke, because that's too, it's a bit close to, okay. So what do you call when you combine Michelle Lightworker with JP Sears?
It's a good question. Michelle. I'm going to have to plead the fifth on this, which is a U.S. amendment. That means I have nothing to say. I don't know. I'd love to hear it.
Oh, good. Okay. You get an ultra spiritual blonde ginger.
That how did I not see that?
Or you could say an ultra spiritual ginger blonde. I mean, that probably flows better.
I think, yeah, the ginger in front of the blonde, that's kind of like, it's got the gingerbread alliteration to it. So yeah, ultra spiritual ginger blonde. That sounds way cool.
And then the last one more, okay? And then the torture is finished. What do you call a ultra spiritual dog?
I would get, well, let's see, dog is the word God spelled forward. So would you call it dog or God?
No, Zephyr.
I think Zephyr would agree. He's laying probably 2 or 3 meters away from me on my office floor under a blanket. So he is not protesting. So I think that Zephyr thinks that you're right.
Yes, and I think, you know what, I really felt like Zephyr wanted to be a part of this discussion, and I felt like he was almost going to sit on your lap while we were talking sometimes. I just felt like he's here anyway, even if he's just lying there snoozing. He's metaphysically, he's hovering around us going, yeah, dudes, I don't have to be on the lap to be with you.
I think you're right. You know, he's physically a few meters away from me, but I think he is astrally projecting himself onto my lap. And I'm not sure, maybe he'll physically project himself onto my lap later. Zephyr's got his own free will. In fact, I think Zephyr's also got my free will under control as well. He's got me trained impeccably.
Yeah, okay, but I'm this ultra spiritual thing, this blonde, the spiritual blonde thing, I really want to clarify just in case people don't know, right? But I am that person that is a recovering control freak who's now so in the letting go of what I'm meant to be doing, blah, 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 blah. People wonder how the hell I do what I do. But it's just because like I just keep turning up to do what I've been guided to do. That's it, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, who falls into, 2 movies and then to be in 2 movies and then producing 5 movies on peace humanitarianism the next day, no, the same day, and then 48 hours later realizes that their own TV show is actually being made into a movie. Like, that's a spiritual blonde, man. You're just turning up, you're falling into these movies and you're not trying to do anything, you're just turning up. It's funny. I mean, I just, do you find that in your life too, that you just fall into things?
Well, I find that I'm definitely not blonde. I mean, I've tried, but I've just I've got kind of like the first and second chakra thing going with my hair. But I love what you're saying. In fact, when I'm hearing you like elaborate what the term spiritual blonde means to you, that really reminds me of the movie Forrest Gump. And you've probably seen it.
My favorite movie. It's on my Facebook as one of my favorite movies. So there's proof. Facebook proof.
That movie, that's a little bit old at this point. That's got to be like 20 years old, maybe longer. Seems like it was just released the other day. But I digress. One of the brilliant things I love about Forrest Gump is he's kind of like the blind man stumbling along, and he just finds his way, because to me, Forrest Gump is the archetype of the innocent. He's not outsmarting himself by kind of like honoring where he thinks he's supposed to go, honoring what he thinks he's supposed to be doing. Instead, he's honoring what he's supposed to be doing. He's honoring where he's supposed to go, not where he thinks he's supposed to go. So to me, that's kind of like it represents I think the beautiful state of mind, which is ironically a place of kind of like having the ability to not think. And I like your playful term, the spiritual blind. It really speaks to that, in my opinion. It's kind of like allowing us to use, in my opinion, it's like using, better said, it's putting us in a position where we're using our mind as a slave rather than us being a slave to our mind. And, I can also relate to that in my life and my career when things work well, and I've been blessed. They seem to be unfolding and blossoming really nicely lately. I do feel like I'm the blind man stumbling along. I feel like this spiritual blonde where it's like there's a grace where things find me, probably because I'm not walking in the opposite direction, trying to fulfill my ego's agendas. And I will say, just to add my last 2 cents to that, well, they do seem to like gracefully find me. There is a lot of hard work that I put in as well, where I'm essentially kind of like very committed to what I'm doing. And to me, that's a part of it as well. I won't pretend that I just sit around and meditate for 23 and a half hours a day and, things just materialize through the power of my handsomeness. Apparently it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, you're allowed to say that. Jesus. But, I can call you that too, if you like. I picked up on my own joke that I didn't even know I said. See, that's a spiritual blonde moment. See, I even joke without knowing it.
I like that. Telling jokes that you don't know you're telling when you're telling them. Yeah.
And then laughing about them later. Going, oh, I see that joke. That was funny. I agree with what you're saying there, because I feel like for me, I work really hard. Because let's define hard. I guess no, that's another joke. Sorry. Let's.
Well, if you want a definition of hard, Michelle, I will send you a link to a website.
Does it rhyme with torn?
It just might.
Like for me, it's really like focus, I guess. Because if I think about working hard, it's more like I'm focused, and there's a time to be focused, and even in that focused, you know what? I could complicate my life so much, because, for example, the other day, I had an email from my assistant, and she was like, I don't know, it's probably about this long with, hey, how you going with all these things that we've got to do? And I was like, yeah, I've done one, but that's because Spirit has prioritized that particular one. And on other days, I would have done all 5 of them and then 7 other things. So I think it's about remaining focused on what you're guided to do in the priority that you're guided to do it as well. And I think that's where the masculine, or the focus, that yang energy, and the feminine, which is that real ability to go, let me just sit in that, and then I will feel into what the priority is with that insofar as timing. It's like the marriage of the two come together. And I think if I had that out of balance, I'd be all over the place and I would never get anything done. And I'd probably be back in the control freaky days of trying to run everything my way. And there'd be no room for Spirit to give me the priorities,
Yeah. Well, and I'm curious on that, when you've got like the assistant sends you the list of like, okay, here's the 10 things that you've got to do, and at the end of the day, you say, well, I did the first one, and that's what Spirit guided me to do. So I'm curious how you can tell, or at least your perception of how you know when it's Spirit guiding you, because I know a part of the human condition is self-sabotage, where we procrastinate. And I think part of intelligent self-sabotage is we come up with good excuses. I mean, let's just say someone's procrastinating, they've got 10 things to do. And when they only do 1, or they do none, or whatever it is, but they don't do all 10, nobody sits there, and most people don't sit there and say, well, I only did 1 because I'm a lazy person who gets my emotional needs met through self-sabotage. Typically will have kind of like a good excuse. And usually it's a good enough excuse that we buy into it. We buy into the rationalization. And I know a lot of kind of like my videos are shining the light on what I would call spiritualizations in the spiritual community, where we say things that are really rationalizations to justify our ego's agenda. Sometimes that agenda is procrastination. So long story short, I would be, for my own benefit, really curious to hear, as I'm forming like a 20-minute long question. You can tell like I'm an expert communicator. The best way to ask someone a question is to ramble at them for 45 minutes. That's the clear community. So the down question with some of that context is, how do you distinguish between spirit guiding and procrastination?
I will walk you through my process that I had yesterday. I got the email, and she'd sent me the email the week before she'd had her eye operation, which was probably about 10 days ago now. And I said I'd get to the email because I've been filming like 21 recordings in the previous 13 working days. So I was recording a lot. And so I felt like her eye operation, like I was looking at the whole situation, I was thinking, you know what, her eye operation's really timely because she can't do anything. She can't see until she'd healed, which was just at the end of last week. So it was kind of interesting the way the spiritual timing of all that. So when I looked at the email again yesterday and I went, okay, how much of this have I actually done? Because I had actually put a free course together that was big enough of itself, actually, in the middle of recording all that stuff. And then I saw there was all these other things that they are very important things. But at the same time, the energy around those things was not really feeling like it was calling me. I felt like, yep, they're important. And I was having a relationship with those dot points. Does that make sense? Like I was actually feeling into them. No. And not feeling any guilt around it. Just not right now. Then I got the message to give her a call and to actually say, hey, honey, have gone well. I looked at the list again. I've done one. It'd be great to talk through the rest. And my feeling was that insofar as having a discussion around that, again, like collaboration, like not just being my own nutsy, control freak energy around what I think I shouldn't do and what I think I should do, and just bringing that into the space, that invitation into the space for more information. I thought that was really important as well. So it wasn't the end of the story, as in not now, not this week, not for the next month. It was more, not right now, but I want to have a conversation about it. So it's a process of relating. This is my short answer to the 45-minute answer I just gave. It's a process of relating to the data, relating to the help, relating to the person who's asked the question, relating to myself, relating to the feeling of what I'm getting coming through. Does that help?
Yeah, what I really heard what I heard you say is like the bridge of relating is the feel. I heard you say like you feel into the dot points. And I'd be curious, like I know feelings are really beyond words. I think feelings are a significantly more sophisticated language than our verbal languages. Yet with that said, what's it feel like to you when the dot point is like a sort of like a yes, do this right now kind of thing?
Yeah, I feel like it's really drawing me in, and it feels almost like it's taking my hand. Let's go, babe. It feels real. It's no different from you and I wanting to go skip down at the park. Let's go skip. You want to hold my hand? Let's go skip.
I like that.
Yeah, it's real. It's not disassociated. However, some dot points can feel like it's a door slamming in your face just that moment. And you can think, that's what you do, man. That's like, oh, okay. I felt that. But I also get I'm lucky because I have a lot of clairaudience stuff coming at the same time now, or it did initially too, and it'll just be not right now, and I get it at the same time. Yeah. But if it didn't have the feeling associated with it, you'd question it, wouldn't you? Like, how do you know? And So you got to be in your body, I reckon, to really get a full read of a situation.
Yeah, I love all that. And I I struggle with a part of that, and part of that I don't like. The part that feels graceful to me is, whether or not like I'll put something on my list or calendar, my assistant will ask me about it, or whatever the offer is, and like I'll get a pretty clear yes or no. And I've gotten really good at honoring that, and I really am not willing to betray that. Like the idea of saying yes to something that's my heart's saying no to, like I can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So, and even if something like doesn't feel like, like I won't enjoy that, but it feels purposeful, like, okay, I'll do that. Like, email communication, like, it's not like joyful, but there's purpose to it. So once I've got, like, say, the list and things on my calendar, that's the graceful part. But here's where I struggle. I become like a bull in a china shop. Like, okay, I've got the hell is it? Like my daily to-do list today that I've, take all my appointments on my calendar as well as other stuff that I'm doing. And I'll put that in, I'll just be like the bull in the china shop where, like, I'm going to plow through this list, and it becomes kind of like a hustle mentality. And I love the ambition of it. I love sort of the warrior masculine energy passion of it. But at the same time, it doesn't really feel greatly balanced. Like, I feel like sometimes I'll complete my list at the expense of myself, and I'm not really in a sensitive place. Like, okay, JP, these things are on my list for today, and this list is written on a piece of paper, not a piece of stone that's going to be like cast into the mind of God forever. So I find it interesting how insensitive I am to things once I get the real, hey, it's purposeful. And I think part of that, for me, part of my struggle is I'm sort of like a productivity addict, workaholic, people pleaser. That's really stems from my dysfunction ever since I was a young child, of needing to earn my way into being valued, needing to earn mattering. And it really is a challenge. And it's weird too. I mean, it really is a bizarre challenge, because it's like everything on my list, like, I would judge it to be inherently good. Like, it's supportive for me and my business and the world around me, and it's like helping people. And then at the same time, some of the energy driving me is dysfunctional as hell. It's like this 4-year-old boy inside who's just like deep under the surface saying, yeah, I won't matter unless I do all that.
Yeah, wow. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I realized I was a workaholic in my early 20s. So I've been in recovery from that for now 24 years. And occasionally I find myself sliding into that mentality of do and not be, and not having that balance. And I think, like, leading up to my trip in Bali last year, I was in that energy of, I've got to get this done, I've got to get this finished, I've got to, I was in that energy.
Yeah.
And when it took me like 3 days in Bali to uncoil my tightness. And I even warned my family. I said, guys, I'm freaking wound up like a freaking, yeah, and it's not nice to catch yourself in that space. It's not nice. And when I got back from Bali, it was really interesting, because some of the guidance that came through straight away for me was only work from 10 to 4. And that's it. And I had some really strict boundaries around that for a long time, for months. And, and then that helped me to really, like, prioritize my time, like, really super duper. I had to let things go. Like, I literally had to let, like, big chunks of things that I was doing to go, and to just focus on what I'm being called to do. So it really helped me get clear on that. And then after that, I've been working from 10 till about 5. If you don't count going for my morning run and meditating on my day as work, because you could count anything as work, right?
Because it preps you to be centered, present, energized. So I definitely feel you on that.
Yeah, but it's like, I think the intention behind our work calls us to task to notice any unhealed bits for us. And it feels to me like that's an ongoing journey. It's like, you know, in the way we work, how much we work, especially if we've got these tendencies to work a lot. And I certainly, I don't know about you, but I don't want to burn out, and I want to keep going. And I feel like I have things in balance now that I'm not burning out. I mean, even last week, good example was I'd planned to, after my recording, Spirit said to me, and I listened and I blocked the days off my calendar, right? Do not book anything on these 2 days. Now, one day was Thursday last week, was Australia Day, because we're recording in January. It was January the 26th. And the following day was January the 27th. And I was told weeks prior, do not book anything on these days. And Friday turned up. And I was like, what the hell? But I got this, you know, I had already told you about the list, didn't I? Right? Didn't look at the list. That was not at all do not open your computer, you know? This is not about work today at all. And I was like, okay, what am I doing? You know, okay. Yeah, that was a weird day, you know, unplanned day, no work, and I just turned up for it. Now that was cool. Like, that's therapy for a workaholic.
Yeah, that sounds like I'm in touch with my workaholic dysfunction that infects a part of me. And hearing about that, like, that sounds freeing and scary. It's like, wow, you did nothing for the day. And yeah, and it's like, I notice, like, I don't know, just notice it's blatant for me. Like the pace that I've been going, it's not sustainable. You mentioned, like, what's sustainable, and I've been going at a sprint pace, honestly, for longer than you can sprint. So I'm not sustainable, and it's weird for me, weird, confusing, and bizarre, that it's hard for me to tell the difference between what I should be doing to have a sustainable, you know, work and purposeful expression versus what I should let fall away. Because, you know, the rationalizations that my mind comes up with, you know, are troubling. One, because some of them are absolutely true, and others of them are absolutely true, but I should ignore anyway. It's like truth has this tantalizing seduction to it. It's like, I'm not stupid, and most people aren't stupid who self-sabotage in their own way. It's like, we'll use rationalizations to justify our behavior that are true because those are the believable ones. If we use ones that are completely fictitious, like, we're smarter than that, we're not going to buy into it. So, like, I look at, you know, my schedule right now, it's so easy to justify, like, my book is launching, so packing in so many interviews and book launch products, along with, you know, the video work that I'm doing, and speaking and performances that I've got coming up. It's easy to look like, yes, that's all, like, this for the book phase, this is all good stuff. And it might be true, but there's another part of me is like, well, is it true? I don't know. Is that just my rationalizations? So one thing's for sure, Michelle, I know I'm dysfunctional as hell. I'm at least happy about it, and I'm doing my best to.
Sounds like another book, though. That's cool. I always say our dysfunction is fodder for a book, so awesome stuff.
Yeah, in fact, I think if a book's not based on dysfunction, it's just a boring, shallow book anyway. I think, you know, beauty is born in dysfunction for sure.
But I think it's great that you, like, had the realization of it, because you know, like, I can relate to that, because when just before Bali, I was in all that rationalization. I have to get this done. I was part of the Hay House World Summit. I had stuff to do. I was part of, you know, doing my magazine. Had to be done, like, before I left. Like, it couldn't not be done. I had someone on the front cover, blah, 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 you know, rationalization. Of course, all that had to be done. I think of it is when I got back, the realization was I really need to seriously plan my time differently so that it is sustainable. And I feel like, I know in my early days of recovery from workaholism, I would, on a Saturday morning, I would actually block out like 2 hours where I hadn't planned anything. It wasn't yoga time. It wasn't journal time. It wasn't anything time. It was actually, it didn't have a name. It was just a block, a blank block. I mean, I've progressed now to be able to do that in a whole day occasionally and go, oh my God.
Awesome.
But it was so cool. And I'd turn up for it. And you know what? It just felt like someone had given me the biggest present anyone could ever give me. And it might actually sound scary when you're looking at it from here over to there. But when you turn up for it, because there's a part of you that actually just doesn't want to have to do anything for anyone at all, or do. It's such a cool thing to give yourself.
For sure. I mean, to me, that's kind of like the definition of playfulness, spontaneity and not having a plan. I think the structure, planning, like those are cool things. But when they dominate our lives, our inner child, our playful nature, it gets caged in. So,
Yeah.
I think there's a reason why, in schools, children have recesses. It's like school, there's a lot of structure, and then, okay, go outside and play. There's no plan. The only plan is to not have a plan. Go play, be spontaneous. And I think the illusion is that just children need that. I think sometimes when we acquire a grown-up body and it acquires more wisdom, if you will, in ages, we get tricked. We trick ourselves into believing that we're not still a child just because we're not inside of a kid's body. I think just like a tree in nature, we just add on. We still have a child's self. It won't go anywhere. We also have acquired an adult self psychologically and physically. And to me, that's just like a tree in the sense that if you cut a tree down, which I don't recommend doing, the world needs more trees, not cut down. But if you cut a tree down, you see like, okay, the tree has 30 rings in it. That means the tree is 30 years old. How cool. And when you look at the innermost rings, you say, that's the tree's childhood. It's been inside this whole time, hasn't gone anywhere. You just don't see it when you look at the tree from the surface. Someone might not see Michelle's childhood when they look at you from the surface. Might not be true for you because you always look very playful in my experience. I think it's wonderful. But nonetheless, when we look beyond the surface and actually quit hypnotizing ourselves into believing that we are who we see. So, I think we're way more than what we see of ourselves. Just like the tree, we have our playfulness, our childlike self still inside of us. And I'm hearing you testify like, yeah, when you give that part of you permission to live,
yeah,
it works well for you. And I think that part of us, it doesn't live in a highly structured environment. Other parts of us live and thrive in that. Just like a dolphin, if you throw it in the middle of the desert, pretty soon it's not going to be living there. Just like an inner child, you throw it in the middle of a cage, it's not going to be living there for too long. But when you put the dolphin in water, wow, now it's living. It's awesome. Same thing with our inner child and the unplanned playground, if you will. And I think we're both land and sea creatures in this metaphor, at least, where we need to be the dolphin playing in the ocean sometimes, and then we need to be the expressing other dimensions of our life on the land. So I don't think when we're on the land, it doesn't kill our dolphin unless we always stay there. When we're being an adult, it doesn't kill our inner child unless we stay rooted in the land of grown-uphood forever. I think part of life is being dynamic. And to me, it's just kind of like you mentioned sustainability. And to me, that means balance. Just like when you watch someone surfing, the surfer who looks like they're in balance, they're constantly adjusting left, right, forward, back, and in 3 dimensions, which means they're dynamic. Their ability to be dynamic, left and right, forward, back, up and down, that's what allows them to be in balance. But if a surfer gets stuck in just one direction, always being the adult, that's what throws them out of balance. Yeah. And nonetheless, I think being in balance is always a present moment phenomenon. It'd be fun if we could just be like, oh yeah, I achieved balance. Now I'm balanced. It's like, I might be balancing well today, but that doesn't mean I'll automatically be well balanced tomorrow. I think we have to be present and mindful with how we are the next day. And I also find, before I get off my soapbox, that what is balancing for us one day might push us out of balance the next day. And I think that's part of the beauty of how life seemingly is always calling us to pay attention in the present moment, not pay attention to the moment of yesterday, what worked for us today, or not be present with what we think will work tomorrow, but be present like right now. What do I need right now? How am I right now?
Yeah, and I think that the more present we are in the right now, the more we can tune into what we're going to need in the future as well. Like there's an irony in that. And there's also an irony in the fact that we have this child within us and we have a parent, and we can slip over into the parent too much. But if we're going to be a parent, an adult effectively, then we're going to actually recognize what the child needs before it needs it too. And so I think that there's a real art, a mastery to being parenting properly, that creating that space is just as important. And I feel like, that is such an irony when you think of it, because the child likes to play, and it existed before the adult came on board, because we were children before we created this adult personality. But at the same time, the adult has to remember the child, so it keeps it alive, and the child's not flipping around like a dolphin in the desert. I'm going, baby, get me a bloody wading pool. I need water. So yeah, I you know what, I feel like what the message coming through is that we are continually fine-tuning, JP, because you've stepped from, your story on our front cover last September, talked about your journey, about how you were feeling like, even though you'd been doing the spiritual work for a while, you'd sort of felt soulless, and you needed something. You needed you needed to channel what you're doing in a creative way. And it's like you've transitioned across to that. This is how I'm reading the situation. You've transitioned across to that. You've incorporated that creativity with what you're doing. And then, of course, there's this now mastery of, I'm doing what I'm doing, so I can justify working all the time, because we could.
That's it, yeah.
We so could. Because half the time it doesn't feel like work. Like, does this feel like work? Come on. I mean, it doesn't, but at the same time, the inner child's probably saying, yeah, but I'd rather watch Netflix, or, you know what I mean?
Or throw like poop at my neighbor's house, kind of like get in touch with my child monkey.
Oh, I want to put this in fantasy, I mean, whatever. So, I think it's like where that, and I think people watching will relate to this, because I've got a lot of people tuning into Enlightened Conversations that are doing this work. And I feel like these are the kind of conversations that need to be said. How, when you step into what you're meant to be doing, do you still stay humble enough to be able to say, you know what, it's still sliding into an area I'm not kind of happy about. So obviously I've got to address that as part of the longevity of sustaining what I really enjoy doing.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, for me, a big part of like continuing to honor what feels most purposeful, following my heart, and therefore like noticing when I'm sliding somewhere that's not aligned. I've had to learn to say no. Yeah. And, sometimes saying no is to new opportunities that come to me. Some of them are great opportunities. It's just, it doesn't feel like a yes. I don't feel lighter when I think about it. And it has nothing to do with hard work. I'm not afraid of hard work. It just, is this a yes or a no for me? Is this aligned with the North Star of my heart? And it's weird. I find like it's always easy to say no to crappy things. But part of the challenge for me has been learning to say no to great things, which is really like kind of like, I don't know, a deeper way of honoring myself. And then I've also had to learn to say no to things that I once said yes to. Things that even when I said yes to them, they were very purposeful and aligned with my true north in that moment, in that time. And, for example, for me, for the past 15 years, the majority of my work has been with one-on-one clients doing emotional healing work. And it's like, wow, that's so purposeful. I've gotten so much out of it, so much growth myself. And a few weeks ago, just finally got clarity. I think the message had been knocking at my door for a while, but I was finally ready to not just listen, but act on it. But the message was, it's time for me to move beyond my client work. So saying no to client work now. I mean, I've got a couple months worth of clients that were already on my schedule, which I'll honor those appointments and I'll really enjoy it. But it's like a jump off the cliff to act, wow, I'm saying no to something I've been saying yes to with so much passion and authority, and it's given me so much benefit. To me, it's almost like the toddler. If the toddler were to say no to the breast, wow, that's what's been nurturing me. That's what's been giving me a connection. And now I'm saying no to it. It's like maybe the guardian angel of the toddler says, yeah, you're allowed to say no because that's helping you say yes to something even better for you, something more nurturing for you. And yeah, so that essentially, and by the way, I sound like a toddler with what works for me. No, saying no. It's like become the terrible twos. But that's learning to say no, especially for me, because I'm a people pleaser in recovery. Mantra of a people pleaser says, yes, I will be what you need me to be. I will do whatever I think I need to do in order to be valued by you. And if it's all at the expense of me, that's fine. I'll completely give myself away in order to please you. That's got to go beyond that. So I think that's some of what's helped me. And I'd be curious, your question or your answer or your question for the same question. I'd love to hear what works for you.
I feel like for me, I'm not saying no to something ever. I'm actually only ever saying yes to what I know is for my highest good, because if I think of it like I'm saying no, it's almost like a negative. But it's not that no is negative at all. And I actually say the words no. But what I mean is the way I frame it in my head is I'm saying yes to me. I'm saying yes to my calling. And also, yes to the next spiritual stretch, which might be scary and unknown. Like I shared with you before we came on air about letting go of my radio job before I knew what I was doing, and then this arrived, this TV show arrived. It's like, oh, okay. But saying, like, creating that space, because you need to create the space for it before it'll come in. It's like you take that yes leap,
I like that. Yeah, I really like how you frame like saying no to something or someone. Those are the literal words spoken, but that's a way of saying yes to yourself. And I love that, honoring your truth. And that definitely, that's how it is for me too. I just hadn't put it in the elegant words of Michelle before.
Well, just straightening the blonde hair.
It's the spiritual blonde thing.
All those people who knocked me for my looks or whatever, there you go. Hey, I have a question for you, seeing as we're on this topic of yes. What have you said yes to lately that is coming up for you that you want to share with people so that they know what they can say yes to too?
Well, that's a great question. A couple of things come to my mind. I mean, relatively recently, a while ago at this point, I said yes to the book project, which is so scary for me. Like, oh, write a book? Ooh, haven't done that before. That's scary. But that's a yes for me. So I put my heart and soul into it. And I'm so thankful that JP of yesteryear had the courage to honor his yes. And then also recently, I've learned to say yes to relationships. About a year ago, the girlfriend I was with for, I don't know, 2.5 years, give or take, her and I broke up. And then at that time, you know, there was so much work opportunities and just amazing stuff coming my way. It was where uh, I said to myself, you know, I don't have the capacity for a relationship. I don't want to devote the time and attention to it. And I can't / I'm not willing to give a woman what she would really deserve to have as far as time and attention. And I think that was kind of legit for a while, but I think that mindset has expired for me. So in early January this year, I just, you know, I had feelings come up in me where I was like, okay, now I can say yes to a relationship. I'm not in one yet, but there's this space for if and when the right connection comes along.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm celebrating. I think relationships are so cool, and when you can share what you're doing with someone, they build you up and they really encourage what you're doing and they bring out the best in you and support you. It's just, that's an awesome like part of relationship, you know. I've been
Yeah.
with Tony for the last years, and it's been awesome to be able to share that with someone. I mean, I would do it anyway, because I remember like my previous relationship, I stepped out because I was like, I'm free to be me, like completely me. I don't feel built up. I don't feel like that person really sees who I am, or when I step up into who I am more, they miss it. It's like, And so it's cool when you've got someone there who's going, I see ya, and guess what? And then some, I see some more. Like, you know, it's a very nourishing experience to have a witness like that side by side. So I'm celebrating with my friend, and also good to have sexy times too. That's always awesome.
It is. It appears to be a part of life and the human exploration, which I like that. It's good to have sexy times too. Keeping it real. So agree with you.
Yeah.
And I love hearing how you guys have the the mutual support. I've had past relationships, and I'll sound like, oh, it's all the woman's fault. It's like I've got my part of it too. I don't want to just sound like the blaming victim. Yeah, my experience of some past relationships I've been in is that not only was I not supported in expressing my purpose and doing the work that I do, I feel as though like that started to become something the lady would be fighting against, where it was almost like when I was spending time and attention, doing the purpose of my work, it's like she would start to see like, well, that makes me feel less important about myself. So I'd start to get a lot of resistance against me doing my work. And to me, that's almost suffocating. It's like having someone start to put their hands over my nose and mouth and like resisting me breathing. It's like, my work, I feel very blessed to say I feel clicked into my purpose. So my work is part of my oxygen. It's part of my breathing for my heart and soul. And a while ago, I was having dinner with such a beautifully wise woman. Her name's Tammy Simon. She's the founder of Sounds True, the publishing company that's doing my book. And her and I were just talking about relationships, and I was sharing some of this with her about my past relationships. And she's like, how sometimes the wisest things are the simplest, most obvious things. It's like there's so much power in simplicity. But I was blind to it. And she said, JP, you need to get clear on wanting a woman who will support you rather than work against you. Someone who will be your biggest cheerleader rather than someone, kind of against your work, someone who you have to kind of fight to have the space to do your work. And I'm like, what the hell's wrong with me? How come I haven't thought of that? And then, it kind of got me thinking, just getting curious about myself. Well, why has my just unconscious reactive mindset been find relationships where my work and my passion, not only am I not supported and cheered for, but it's like that's seen as the enemy. And,
Mm.
and well, I don't know the answers for sure. Some of what I've gotten curious about is how the energy of conflict is something familiar enough from my childhood that it's comfortable and familiar, and therefore I get a sense of safety out of the familiarity of it. And even though the conflict is uncomfortable, I get a comfort out of the discomfort of it simply because it's familiar. So it's like, yeah, okay. Having some of my adult relationships driven by a very young, wounded child addiction to the discomfort that I've still not processed, I guess that's something that I don't want to be stuck in. So it was really cool to get some clarity and insight about that.
I have to disagree with you because I
Uh-oh.
really...
I'm getting ready to disagree with your disagreement. I feel the conflict coming on, Michelle. Let's hear it, sister.
I really feel like you've been working your shit so hard that you have been processing by activating your purpose. And you have been, now that you've done that, that is why you feel ready to have someone come in. And that is why you've now attracted somebody who's had the conversation with you to say, this is what you need, because you're ready to hear it. You have been doing it. You have been living it. You're even at the point where you are wanting to bring it back into a bit of balance because you don't have to do it in order to be okay, because that's another aspect that needs to be healed. So you're even dealing with that component. You're dealing with the part that person represented. You're dealing with that within yourself now, right? The resentful parts. So you're dealing with all of that. Like, you're working it, honey. I'm just watching it from afar going, you're rocking it. You're really rocking it. So I can't not see someone come into your life. Like, it's going to be like, not only that, but when they come into your life, you're going to actually go, hell yeah, rather than, you're going to enjoy it, because you've been doing that for you for the past 18 months or 2 years. You've actually been doing that for you. You've been committing to your purpose.
I like that perspective. Thank you for shining your light my way. That's cool to see and feels good to see.
Yeah, and validating what you're doing every step of the way. Because sometimes we think we've got to go into a meditation to process, to integrate a part back into our lives. And all the while, the actual steps that you're making every single day in action, and all the choices you're making, JP, and the honesty, even on this show, talking about your honest relationship with a part of you that wants to stop sometimes and just be, and all that's actually live processing. That's live processing. That's transparency. That's shame reduction work. That you're putting it out there for everybody to see. So it's massive. It's massive. And I want to thank you for that, because there's so many people that can benefit from hearing you say all of that, like real-time processing stuff. Because sometimes we wait till we've processed it and then we share it and go, oh yeah, I went through this cool process and da-da-da-da-da, and now out popped me, da-da. I like real-time processing. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, thank you for all of that, wise lady. And I like your term real-time processing. To me, that really honors the significance of life, where whether it's in a meditation or a deliberate healing exercise, awesome stuff happens there. We probably do process a lot. And the message I got from you is our healing doesn't just happen when we're doing healing, when we think we're healing. And it's kind of like, I think sometimes we learn the most when we don't know we're learning. It's like sitting in a classroom, that's like, okay, deliberate learning. But honestly, I think we always learn more when we don't know we're learning, when we're having an experience. And, one of your messages that I heard is kind of like aligning with your purpose has more purpose to it than what we think it does. And part of aligning with our purpose is it kind of like clicks us into calibrate with more healing that's going on below the surface, because maybe we're living our metaphors, we're projecting our past unresolved stuff onto the hero's journey of what's being laid out in front of me with these purposeful tasks. So I might not be literally talking about the wound from when I was 5 years old, first day of kindergarten, but I may metaphorically be experiencing that and walking through it with new courage and finding the feelings as I'm saying yes to something that scares the heck out of me, saying yes to a book deal. Even though, just like the 5-year-old, like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if anybody's going to like me. I don't know if I'm going to get approval. So yeah, that's, I love that. Actually, just hearing your words, it makes me feel like, yeah, it makes me feel more appreciation for what I would call normal life.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Hey, also, I'm being called to tell you something, because I feel like if you watch this back, it'll help you with your ability to receive. Okay, so if I was single, I'd go out with you.
Oh, well, thank you.
There you go. There you go. See, there's plenty of cool chicks that would say yes, and they would support what you're doing. There you go.
I like that. Yeah, and thank you for having me on this dating game show. I can't wait. It'd be fun.
It's a little bit incestuous. Really is a bit incestuous, isn't it? Because you're kind of like my brother. But anyway, I think it's really good shame reduction where it's like, yeah, let him, baby. Yeah, she'd go out with him. Yeah, okay, let's go.
And yeah, I do appreciate hearing that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of people who see you, JP, and I think when we take the blinkers off and then we actually see what we can create space for, Spirit makes it possible to have a awesome career / what we're meant to be doing, life purpose, and room for another being to share that with. So, you know, if you've got, like, because I'm picking up, there might be some stuff around that, like, oh, how could I fit it all in? It's like, don't worry about that. It'll all just be easy.
Yeah, I'm definitely picking up what you picked up, how, you know, that how will I fit it all in? Because I look at, you know, kind of like when I'm home, you know, at my home rather than traveling present day, it's like, yeah, I live by myself with the magical Zephyr. So he and I, it's my beautiful dog. But I oftentimes I'm in work mode essentially from when I wake up to when I go to bed. And you know, I eat, I exercise, I do my self-care, which, like we said earlier, part of me views that as like, well, that sets me up to do good work. But anyway, we'll leave that to another. So I look at that, I'm like, yeah, how would I fit in a relationship? However, it's like these feelings I found in January. I was at a retreat in Costa Rica. There was just this woman, a wonderful connection. And it's like, wow, I feel feelings that I sort of forgot existed. And like these feelings, like they're powerful. Yes, there's the dopamine rush and all the kind of like make you blind infatuation, but there's something more powerful than that. And it's like there's a wisdom there that's like, okay, worry about fitting it all in isn't part of the equation, because if there's a redistribution of I'm talking to my inner work ethic, redistribution of my time allotment during the day, that's okay, because it'll be redistributed in things that not only feel really good, they probably even feel better, deeper, and more fulfilling, more connecting than just what I'm doing now. So it's like, yeah, not to worry.
Oh yeah, no, it's so good. And like, if anything like me and Tony, like at the end of our Friday, like we have Friday night wind down and we have a pizza night. We make our own pizzas. We dance around the lounge room. We talk about the week that was, and it all like integrates. And like, it's not hard work. I don't think relationships are that hard work. I think we think they are, but they're actually easy, and they support us and make things easier. But they're only hard work if we haven't committed to ourselves the level that we want someone else to commit to us. And so I find my relationship makes my life even easier and my work life easier, not harder. So I think there's a belief system we have, oh, relationships are so hard, blah, blah, blah. And it's rubbish. And I remember when I first, before I met Tony, I said to my girlfriend, we had a phone call, and I said, I want easy. I put my order in for easy, JP, and I got it.
It's interesting. Some of the, like, again, like the how much wisdom is found in simplicity. What I heard you say is relationships that won't work are very hard to make work, kind of like impossible. But relationships that are a very good fit, relationships that are essentially impossible to fail, those have easy flow to them. I like that.
Exactly.
Whatever like impossible to fail means, whether that relationship is destined to be a year,
Yeah.
2 years, a month, a lifetime, not for me to say, but yeah, I love the wisdom in that simplicity.
Well, I'd love to have you on the show. It's the hour's just gone by so quickly; it's ridiculous. And
It has. It is ridiculous. It's a little bit of a kind of like an act of vengeance from God that the hour's gone by so fast.
oh, but see, that's what happens. Like, I mean, enlightened conversations are awesome, aren't they? Because like you're safe to be whoever you are. And then there's probably people watching going, oh, we don't want it to end either because we felt safe to be who we were, even though they weren't actually hearing our conversation, but I can feel them unlocking and activating as they're listening and they're part of it. So I know it's kind of hard to say goodbye to the end of an enlightened conversation, but we can continue it from afar. This enlightened conversation will continue, I'm sure.
I like that. Let's do a little astral travel, Michelle, and I'll meet you in Hawaii.
Oh, that sounds a bit like cheating. I'm not sure, JP.
Well, bring Tony. Bring Tony. He sounds awesome. I'd love to hang with him too.
No, apparently, he said anything I do in my dream time is fine. So it's all right.
That's funny you mentioned that. I know we're out of time and I'm still rambling. A friend of mine, he and I always talk about dreams. We both do dream work with the same dream therapist, actually. And he was telling me how his girlfriend got furious at him because he had a dream where he was cheating on her. It was like, I don't think our minds generate dreams. I think our minds receive dreams from a higher consciousness. So anyway, he woke up and he and his girlfriend, they too discussed their dreams. She got mad at him for having a dream where he was cheating on her. It's like, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Well, controlling too.
Yes, and fearful. But I mean, gosh, we could continue to talk about like everything for all time, I think. Easy peasy. But just before you go, just make sure people can find you. And the best website they can get you on is probably your awakenwithjp.com, isn't it?
Yeah, awakenwithjp.com. You'll find me there, and all my social media handles are Awaken with JP. So that's the best place to either find me or avoid me.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Thank you. And I certainly won't be avoiding you, brother. I love you. And thank you for joining me.
I love you too, Michelle. Thank you for having me on.
You're welcome.